Anthony Charles Edwards is a 68-year-old self-taught artist who began painting in his early 40s. So it's never too late for you to figure out your career options here and your career growth plans. His painting style includes folk art and stained glass. Edwards uses acrylics as his primary art medium. His work is part of the Harriet and Harmon Kellet collection of African American art, one of our nation's most extensive collections of African American art. In 1995, one of Edwards' works, Our Land, Our Home, was included in an exhibit at the Smithsonian presented by the Kellets. The Honorable Lila Clark, rest her soul, an avid collector of African American art, especially local artists, purchased one of Edwards' paintings. Today, it is part of the art collection of the Honorable Lila Cockrell on permanent exhibit at St. Philip's College. And that is in our Bowden building, the Sutton Learning Center, and in our art gallery on the 3rd floor. His work has been shown at the Stella Jones Gallery and the Galeries Royale in New Orleans, and locally at the Parchment Sturmo Gallery. His work can be found at the San Antonio Museum of Art and the Fine Art Collection at the Freeman Coliseum. Periodically, he lends his collection of African American artifacts to the Whitty Museum, and we did have the director of the Whitty Museum here. I'm not sure she's still with us. I know she had to leave, Marie McDermott. Edwards is a native San Antonian and is a 1970 St. Philip's College alumnus. The 1973 graduate of the University of the Incarnate Word also holds a master's degree in environmental management from the University of Texas at San Antonio. He retired as the vice president of community programs from CPS Energy after a 26-year career. He is a former trustee of the Whitty Museum and is an honorary trustee of the San Antonio Museum of Art. Edwards is a strong supporter of St. Philip's College. He currently has on loan 3 sculptures in the G.J. Sutton building by acclaimed artist Jonas Perkins. Edwards annually gives special edition prints of some of his artwork to St. Philip's. They're on display around the MLK campus, including the Bowden Alumni Center, the Souvenir Shop, and the Turbine Student Center. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome Anthony Edwards back home to St. Philip's College. Anthony.
Well, thank you, Dr. Foster. First of all, I want to thank my sister for coming today. My sister, this is probably one of the first outings she's been out of the house in 6 months. She was in the hospital for about 3 months, and she's in recovery. I want to also, my sister-in-law, she's here. I want to thank her for being here today. And so I have a very supportive family. My brother should be popping in here. And anybody knows my brother, he's a local physician, so he's kind of put his patients on hold.
There he is. Still in. We were just talking about you.
So all the patients are sitting in the waiting room. Where's Dr. Evans? Anyway, I'm happy to have my family here. My way of journey, probably 25, 30 years ago, my sister used to make things, and used to have this starving artist show down at the Riverwalk downtown. And that's kind of my first connectedness with things artistic. She would make things, and I'd go with her, and she'd have a little table and go on the Riverwalk near the Arneson River Theater and sell stuff. So fast forward many years later, my brother invited me to go to the National Black Arts Festival in Atlanta, Georgia. And that really was where it really hit for me. We went to the High Museum, And it's called the High Museum. I just want to say that's the name of it. It wasn't a place to go get high, but anyway. It's called the High Museum. But they have some of the most significant pieces of African American art. And the National Black Arts Festival is held every 3 or 4 years, so it's very big thing. And we've gone maybe 3 times. But the first time we went, it was a lightning rod. And I remember coming home and going over to Michael's and buying some paint and canvas and some brushes and painting stick people for a long time, you know. But the passion was growing. And I remember maybe after a couple of years, I had painted some things and gone on vacation in New Orleans. And in New Orleans, you have Bourbon Street, Royal Street. They run parallel to each other. So Royal Street is where they have a lot of antiquities. So I went to this place called Gallery Royale with a whole bunch of photographs, and there was this guy, Mr. Crutchfield. I showed him some of the things I'd been painting. And he said, well, look, why don't you put some of this on consignment? So I went back home, got in my RV thing, and we brought stuff back, and it was really kind of neat that somebody appreciated your work. And so that's how it happened. And also, too, I need to give a special shout out to Dr. and Mrs. Kellet. I mean, very early on. As a matter of fact, this is a metal plate of a piece, but this is a piece that I had painted early on. And people used to complain, saying, hey, they don't even look like people. What's all that color? What's all this stuff? But anyway, they purchased the painting and they put it in their exhibition at the Smithsonian. So this is just a metal depiction of the painting that appeared at the Smithsonian. So that was a kind of a neat thing because flew to Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian, and Lila Cockrell was there, and my brother was there, my mother and father. And if anybody remember my dad, if you knew him, he had long hair. He looked like Frederick Douglass. And a guy said, hey, you look like Frederick Douglass. So he made it feel good. So my parents came, and so that was certainly a tremendous thing to happen in my life to make it like it was worthwhile, you know. So I'm not used to settings like this because my paintings really reside 100% of the time in my house. So this is a real first for me to show my work out public. And so all of this, everything that you see, and most of the stuff you see today is done in the 21st century, meaning in the early to middle 2000s. I do have lots of work at home of the early years. I didn't bring them simply because I've evolved. I like to paint big stuff. And so that's really kind of, I like to buy big canvases. So if anybody's familiar with Michael's, if you get a thing on your phone, app for Michael's, you get 40% off. So you can go buy a canvas like this and catch it for like $40. And ordinarily it might be $80 or $100. So that's kind of why I started painting big. The other thing is, when you're self-taught, you really don't know proportionality. You have to kind of guesstimate how stuff is. So what I try to do, I tend to paint large because I add stuff along the way. So what you see is not always the intent, but when I paint it large, I can add to it. And I get up sometime in the morning and go look at it when I'm drinking coffee to see, well, like I'm doing one of Kobe Bryant. And you can't see it here, but it didn't feel right to me. I don't know if you can see that, but he had too much hair, so I gotta kind of get some hair off of Kobe. But I should be finished with that maybe in a week or so, and it's just about this big. So that's one thing about painting large. You can change things, you can add things, you can remove things. All right, this piece here, and I understand there's some engineering, technology students in the back, so you can probably appreciate that how art is intertwined in technology. For example, this piece here is really from, you can go online and just say Tuskegee Airmen images, and it will show you an infinite number of images. Now then what you look for is a resolution. So if you see something that says 1,000 resolution, that's a great thing, because that means that is going to blow up to be very clear. So I found one with high resolution, so I blew it up, and I used Photoshop to make it look like a painting. Then I painstakingly painted everybody's face with a brown tone, you see. And all with so much minute detail, even the hands, even the feet, see? The guy has some high water pants on. You see his little leg. So also by using one setting on the toning, it captured everybody's real sense of pigmentation. So if you see it, it says, wow, how do you do that? That's how I do it. It took me about 10 hours just to do the faces. So a lot of time. I'm gonna walk and talk and maybe talk louder. This is, who is this? All right, see, you know, the person who paints, if somebody call out the name, you kind of think, well, you must have did a pretty good job. So, anyway, this is my Aretha at a time where, you know, it was a point in her life where she had some health issues, and so her weight kind of fluctuated. And near the end, she had lost a little weight. But I wanted to do something in homage to Aretha Franklin. So anyway, I'm glad y'all recognize who that was. I was saying, oh, what am I going to say if they say it's Janet Jackson or something? And at the Institute of Art in Chicago, they have a painting that is very similar to this. What I wanted to do here is kind of represent, in the fall seasons, there are seasons of the AKs having their ball, the Deltas having their ball, the Omegas having theirs, and the Alphas. So this is like when we wear our tuxedos and the ladies wear their beautiful dresses. And I tried to do is to capture what it must have looked like and felt like. And so that's the depiction. I even tried to throw in some colors. You see what I'm saying? AK and red. I went out a little off red for Delta, but just to kind of give some symbology, and also to very romantic. You know, she has long gloves on, and he's holding her hand. Got his hands up here, not there. So, very respectful. And this guy here has got a gray hair, so it shows an older person. This one here is called Wakanda. And of course, the Black Panther. One of the things I wanted to do, when I saw the movie, one thing I thought was really, really important is that women were born powerful. They didn't acquire their power. They were born powerful. So I decided, once I saw the movie, I said, well, let me put all the women in the power position. So what I did, if you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I tried to put all the women to be at the forefront, because the movie was named Black Panther. So I just put the brother in, just so they're fine. So, but there's a real power to women, a major contribution to women. Now, who is this? All right, yes, because y'all can read that card. No? Okay. All right, so I did a pretty good job trying to depict Maya Angelou. I had a chance to meet her about 20 years ago. We had a little band and we played for a reception for her, and went to a book signing. She was just a beautiful person. If you have Netflix, there's a thing about Maya Angelou. You ought to see that, and wonderful history of her. So what I try to do in my art too is to take important times and themes that speak volumes to the importance of contributions of African Americans. So that's what I try to do. Now, this piece here is one of my latest pieces. This is my $20 bill. And also, it does also kind of deal with what I consider to be an important part of my own history, and that is the 60s.
the civil rights movement, because this is the walkers that walked from Selma to Birmingham, and put this in black and white simply because the world was black and white, didn't have color back. Well, they probably had a color, we didn't have color TV in '65. So what I try to do is to show that. And also I made Harriet Tubman older, because she did live to be an older woman. And I just kind of felt that I would show it this way. Now, I also would tell you, as an artist, because I'm self-taught, I don't know how to do all the, make the nose right and the mouth, but I hope y'all can look and see, well, that might look like she might have looked. You can definitely tell it's a woman, right? So, and so I also did some other things. Put the American flag in red, white, and blue, symbolic. They were all part of an America. Okay, so anyway, this took me a long time to make this look like a $20 bill. And it's on canvas too, so don't accidentally cut it or something. But anyway, I really like doing that. It took me a long time to do. This is Rosa Parks. I really enjoy doing this. I wanted to do something kind of in black and white and use some, just let my imagination run wild for the backdrop. And I did this in 2015. Now I have an interesting story here on this one. My brother and I will be the same age for 6 weeks next month. So which means that my mother and father were married like 7 or 8 years before he was born. So I think y'all get it. After you have a child, wife goes back to the doctor said, well, wait about 6 weeks. So my father had a clock. He said, well, that's it. So anyway, so I was born the next year. But see, my brother's a physician. We're 10.5 months apart. So I wanted to do something to glorify his contribution to medicine and how hard it was to go to med school back in the time, 30-some years ago, for him, and to keep up, because there were 2 miracles even then. So I wanted to do something out of that Andy Warhol sense. You remember the Campbell can? So what I tried to do is I kept up ketchup. So show a little brother here doing his lesson, show some symbolism, how important education is. So that's my contribution in that regard. Negro head oysters. Most people, you have to probably be over 60 plus years old to know that there was a time where there were Negro head oysters in the 40s. Actually, the NAACP nationally went and had the name change, filed suit against this company, because it was the Big N, was what it used to be called. So in 1940, they changed the name. But that actually, I have a can of Negro head oysters in my house. So that was something that people could go to the grocery store and buy it in a can. This one here, this is Spike Lee. He's kind of my hero because he did lots of movies that touched our spirits. Malcolm X, if you've ever seen Malcolm X, you know that that was just one of the most wonderful movies. In fact, Spike Lee said, there's nobody who can make that movie like I can make that movie. And he had just finished maybe She's Gotta Have It. And that was a big step for Hollywood to make that investment in him to do that. And if you go back and look at that story, he did a marvelous job telling the history of Malcolm X. He did a lot of brilliant work in the cinematography, lots of different, the dancing scenes, just beautiful work. So what I did was use my own license to say the word stay woke, because we all have to stay woke. And I went and put together some of the films that I enjoyed. Malcolm X, Do the Right Thing, School Days, Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, and Black Klansman. So anyway, I kind of like that. That's more of a caricature of what he looked like, Spike Lee. This is a kind of a an Afrocentric version of a painting that hangs in the Institute of Art in Chicago, and I forget what it's called, but I made them African American to bring some sense to the rural significance of Black life many, many years ago. And this one, it kind of changes its name. I used to have it LaQuisha and Pookie. So I think it's called, what is it called? Let me see what I put on here. Pookie and Ray Ray. Pookie and Ray Ray. And also too, when I was a young person, we, on Sundays around 6 o'clock, Disney would come on and we'd watch cartoons. That was a big thing in our community. That we'd be playing in the street. We hear, it would get near 6 o'clock, the Wonderful World of Disney. So Mickey Mouse was a very, very big part of my history. So this, it pays homage to that. It also pays homage to cultural diversity, because you're taking something that had been something else and making it for a segment and making it have some relevance. This is a farm scene. My dad grew up on a very small town, and this is my sense of how it would look. You know, you had a horse, the kids would ride the horse while he's still got the range. So he's out there growing cotton and corn, and his wife is working, she's got the rake, got a little nice house, sun is hot, little headband thing, and it's so hot and hard, he's crying blood tears. This particular picture here is Mr. G.H. Clark Sr. Mr. Clark was the first African-American certified plumber in the state of Texas who happened to live in San Antonio. So I was having lunch with him about 4 or 5 years ago. At the time, he was probably 92, 93 years old. And took that picture that just spoke to me and said, I'm going to enlarge it and make it a big image, because I like photography too. Now, these images here are images that are in my collection. At the Harry Ransom Institute at the University of Texas in Austin, there's a guy, his name is Eugene, I can't think of his last name right now, but he grew up on the east side of San Antonio, but he created what they call panoramic photography. And going to the Harry Ransom Institute and looking through thousands of images, I came across these 4, and they're probably the most significant of the hundreds of thousands of images Mr. Gobeck took. These are probably the only images dealing with African Americans. Now, this particular one was dated on March 29th, 1931. So that's what, 89, soon to be 89 years ago. This image is of the San Antonio chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. So anyway, I thought that would be kind of interesting, because we grow up thinking, feeling, and probably asserting that San Antonio is a great melting pot for all, and it is. But the other part of the reality of San Antonio during that particular period, the Ku Klux Klan was a part of San Antonio, Texas. Now, this is an interesting picture. Everybody knows what Fort Sam Houston is, right? Okay, right next to Fort Sam used to have Camp Travis. Camp Travis where all African American soldiers were located. Fort Sam had Hispanic and whites could serve there during World War II, but World War I. But if you're African American, you had to go to Camp Travis. And what they did during that time was men would join the service, and a large part of their service was being a part of musicals all across the country. This was done on Travis's, William Travis was a very venerated person from the Alamo, Colonel Travis. So this was celebrating a birthday celebration in front of the Alamo. You see the Alamo right here? And if you look real close, this is the minstrel show. And you can see African Americans in blackface. And many would say, well, why would you put that up? Well, I think we need to be reflective of our own history. That's real for San Antonio for that time. And I'm proud that I own these pictures, to be honest with you, because it does speak how important it is to celebrate our history. And sometimes our history makes us all cringe, but we just have to know that it does exist. If I didn't bring them here today, I could have brought more paintings, but this is a Black history celebration. So we should celebrate, albeit some of the things that are not so celebratory, but they nonetheless are part of history. Now these folks, which is interesting, these are delegates to the American Legion Convention in Paris, France. And here are some of the wives, and here are the brothers lined up. This was taken in 1921, so next year will be 100 years ago. So I thought when I saw this, man, Black folks can go to Paris back then. So this guy Goldbeck took this shot. Part of history. Now, this is the Southwest Texas Teachers Institute Color Department meeting. Back in the day, because of segregation, there were few places where people could go, teachers could go have meetings. And so this is a photograph. As a matter of fact, there are some people that had seen this and said, hey, that's my grandfather right there. So that it does resonate with some people in terms of their own personal history. This was, when I was young, it was called Douglas Middle School. It's right across the street from Reverend Black's Mount Zion Church. So if you go on that side street, if you know where Reverend Black's church is, look at that building. That building is this building right here. So this is a collection of, like I said, photographs. And I also went through a period about 15, 16 years ago where I wanted to do stained glass. And I did bring with me one this morning, and I'll just show it to you. And I made one of these for my sisters and brother. This is when President Obama ran for president, and this was the seal. So this is stained glass. Now, I ended here 52 years ago, 1968, and graduated in 1970, so that'd be 50 years. So, if anybody can tell me, and this is a piece here, if you look real close, you see Obama and Martin Luther King. You see it? You see it? All right. So if anybody can tell me what I majored in, the first person who tell me what my major was, you can have it.
Politics.
Political science.
No.
Business.
Automotive. No.
Engineering.
No.
Right here. Nursing.
Business management.
Environment specialist?
No.
Agriculture.
Yes, you know.
Mathematics.
No.
African American history.
No.
Arts.
No.
Biology.
Biology. Who said biology?
Okay. Oh. Yeah.
I have one comment.
Okay.
We grew up in a house that had artwork. We had one work by Leonardo da Vinci in our house. But it's not a wow. My mama cut it out of the picture and she hung it in the living room. And it was a chair, it was a picture of what he had did of a chair in a room. But we grew up around artwork. We really and truly did. My father was a person that wasn't really art focused or anything like that. But one of the things that he did is expose us and other kids to things. He had a baseball team and they had an exhibit of African American art at the McNay. He took the whole team out there just to expose them to our culture. Because otherwise those kids would never grow, never go. That's my comment.